Hello, book besties. Welcome to my channel. I'm Maddie, and let's talk about some books. I have my iced chai with me, and after this video, I'm gonna go add more chai to it because it is really watered down. And this is what happens when you get chai and then do yoga outside in the hot sun. The ice just all melts into it. So, what a wonderful time. I am doing great. So, I haven't done a monthly wrap up in a while because last month, obviously, it was a little bit different. I let my best friend choose what I read for the entire month, and instead of doing a monthly wrap up, I did a month long reading vlog. And yes, it is just as long as it sounds. So, that was last month, and I'm excited to get back to doing my typical monthly wrap ups again. And yeah, so let's talk about the 8 books that I read in the month of May. I thought it would be fun to start with, if I keep messing with my hair, I'm sorry. It's just gonna be what's happening. I thought I would start with some stats on my reading in the month of May before revealing what all I read. So, the average time it took me to read a book was 4 days. There were a couple books that took me a little bit longer to read, and then there are some I didn't take long reading, but I also think it's because I was kind of like forcing myself to read as much as I could as fast as I could because my Libby holds were all coming in at the same time and I was running out of time. So, yeah, it took me 4 days to read books. To read that sentence sounded wrong, but oh well. My top moods were funny and emotional. And I feel like that describes my reading taste really well. I feel like if you would look at like my all-time reading stats, it would say like funny and emotional. That's my top. I love funny books, but I also love books that make me want to die. So I don't know what you want from me. 7 of the books I read were medium paced, with one being fast, and then all of them were between 300 and 499 pages. My top genres were romance and fantasy. I did have some other ones mixed in there, like mystery and yeah, I forgot like everything else that I read. And then 63% of the books I read were in fact digital. Most of the month I ended up reading on my Kindle again because all my Libby holds were coming in at once and I needed to get stuff done. And then 38% were physical. One I borrowed from the library and the rest I owned. I think that was it. And then my average rating was 4.06. It was actually a really great reading month rating wise. My lowest rating of the month was a 3-star read, and then I had 2 5 stars. So pretty great, I think, personally. Now we're gonna dive into what specifically I read because I know y'all are on the edge of your seat. You're just waiting for me to reveal what I read, and I get it, okay? I understand. The first book I read, I borrowed from the library. Technically, actually, okay, it was a situation. So, my roommate had borrowed this book from the library. So, her hold on this book came in, she picked it up, and then I ended up reading it before her just because I had finished what I was reading. I would have just finished reading The Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England. So, I picked this book up, and then after I finished it, we like still held on to it, waiting for her to finish her current read. But this was during finals week. So she actually never got around to finishing the physical library book, and we ended up buying the physical copy. So I do have it physically. I did not read this copy specifically though. And technically it is my roommate's, but it's fine. So I read Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. I don't know if you know this, but I love TJ Klune, okay? Part of the reason is because he writes amazing queer characters and queer fan families. And that's just about like my favorite thing in the entire universe. If you haven't caught on by now, I absolutely adore the found family trope. So any book with the found family trope is automatically like a star higher than however it made me feel. So I love TJ Klune no matter what, and this is the sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea, which is genuinely one of my all-time favorite books. The House in the Cerulean Sea is about Linus. Yeah, is about Linus Baker, and he works for I can't remember the name. I'm trying to think of the abbreviation, but it's like Department of Magical Children. It's like DICOMA. That's the abbreviation. Department. No, I can't remember the exact abbreviation, and I don't know why we expect me to. So he works for the like department taking care of magical orphans. So his job is to go from orphanage to orphanage and basically just observe everything, write a report, and then pass it on. His upper level bosses are the ones who deal with the aftermath of everything. He is just there to write the report and move on, and he like doesn't really think about it ever again. However, because he's such a great employee, they decided to send him to this very special orphanage where Arthur is the head caretaker, and there are these very special magical children. Like, very special. One of them is a green blob. No one knows where he came from or what he is. One of them is like a werewolf, but instead of a wolf, he turns into a Pomeranian. And then there is the son of Satan. Literally, the Antichrist is one of these children, and he's the cutest. There's a gnome, a forest sprite, a little baby wyvern. Am I leaving anybody out? I hope not. And they are just the cutest family because they are a family. So Linus is sent to this orphanage to investigate, and he starts off just investigating, and of course, his hardened heart starts to soften, and he just falls in love with these children and this family, and more importantly, he falls in love with their caretaker, because it is, in fact, gay, as is every TJ Klune book ever. So, The House on Cerulean Sea is so good, and the sequel definitely wasn't necessary, but I appreciated it so much, especially because it felt very relevant the way things were happening and the mindsets that Linus and Arthur are having to face in the world. It was a little too relevant, actually, and there were parts where I'm like, oh shoot, that's like happening right now. Anyways, if you can't tell by the ridiculous smile on my face, this was a 5-star read. I absolutely loved getting to continue Arthur and Linus's story, especially because you get to see them just like in love, you know? Like a lot of books, especially romance books, they end with the couple getting together and you don't really get to see them after. So getting to see them like all cute and like they feel like an old married couple. Like, they feel like they've been together forever and that they've had these children since birth. It made my heart so happy, and we do get a new character in this, and he was adorable. And basically, everything about this book was perfect. It did make me a little teary-eyed with just joy, and some parts I was just on the edge of my seat because, like, things would get crazy. Got a little stressful at times here, and it's funny because you know it's gonna end happy, but that doesn't take away the stress of like the threat of these children being taken away. Like, cause like that's what the threat is. I mean, they're investigating orphanages, and I feel like the only obvious repercussions here are the children being taken away and sent elsewhere. It literally is just a warm hug of a book, and I just I could talk on and on about this series. I'm so glad we got a second book, and I think TJ Klune actually just wrote this for me to make me happy. This was just such a pick me up, you know? And I literally can't. I could just stare at it for hours. And I will forever miss these characters. I will probably go back and reread both the books at some point in my life. I just don't know when. I feel like if I'm ever sad or in a really bad reading slump, I could go back and reread them and just everything would be okay in the world again. So that was my first read of May. We started off so well, and we continued the party. What's the phrase? We kept the party going by reading another 5-star read, and that was Funny Story by Emily Henry. Emily Henry cannot miss. I fear that everything she writes is perfect. Okay, I can't say that because I am still behind on her books. I have only read Beach Read, Book Lovers, and this. And then I have Happy Place, and I plan on reading that this summer. And then I don't own the other two yet, but I do need to read them preferably in the summer. I feel like Emily Henry just writes such summery books that like they need to be read in the summer. So, funny story, if you don't know, I feel like this one is obviously so popular. I think it won the Goodreads Romance Award in 2024. Emily Henry is well known around the world. But in case you don't know, this book follows Daphne. Her name is Daphne. This book follows Daphne, and she's kind of going through it. So, oh, a bookmark just fell out. Where did I get this? Barnes & Noble. That makes sense. Okay. Daphne is currently going through it. Okay. Her fiance comes home from his bachelor party saying that he had slept with his childhood best friend that he always told Daphne not to worry about, which is already bad enough. But to make the situation more interesting, of course, Daphne has to move out of their shared house so Petra can move in. And naturally, where does she move into but into Petra's ex-boyfriend's house or apartment? So she's now living in her ex-fiance's new girlfriend's ex-boyfriend's apartment. It's such a fun sentence. So this is obviously a funny story. Like, this isn't something that just happens to you, but it happens to her. And she is determined to move away from this town in Michigan. And Miles is like, no, like, why should Peter run you out? Oh, I forgot to mention. Her ex-fiance's name is Peter. Literally Peter and Petra. Yeah, if that's not obnoxious, I don't know what is. So Miles is determined to take Daphne on all the fun town things, all the fun tourist things. He is determined to make her fall in love with this town. And I mean, of course, he succeeds, and she falls in love with him along the way. It is such a good book. I love Miles. People always said that he had Nick Miller energy from New Girl, and I can totally see what they mean. I don't think that that is the best way to describe him, but I see what they mean. Also, Miles is just perfect. Like, he's the perfect book boyfriend. Like, I literally can't. And I really enjoyed the angst that we got because Daphne has a lot of, I guess, like self-esteem issues. She puts her worth a lot kind of in other people without really admitting that. And she's just had a lot of emotional trauma with her dad and her childhood, just regarding other people and finding her place in the world. So the angst surrounding that I really loved because, like, I think like that's something that I can understand. And so her just being like, I don't need anybody else, like everybody else is just disappointing me. And Miles running in and being like, I want to prove to you that you're worthy of love. Yes. Yes. Give me more right now. I could read like 10 more of these just about Daphne and Miles. I loved them so much. I don't even like know if I can form more words that make sense about my love for them. What else did I love about this book? Everything. I loved her friendship that she built with one of her coworkers because Daphne grew up like not really having a lot of friends, and that's something like I can relate to a lot. But the difference between like me and her is that she didn't have friends because she moved around a lot. I didn't have friends because all my friends moved away. So I could like understand like the other end of her experience. And then she is working at this library and she's such a good children's librarian. Oh my gosh. And she just like slowly befriends her coworkers, especially this one she becomes like best friends with, and I love their friendship. So in this book, you not only fell in love with the romance, but I think it's really easy to fall in love with the characters, and you get a lot of other relationships outside of the romance. You get that platonic and familial love as well, and I feel like that's just perfect. I think romance books that surround other topics and other aspects of love make me really happy. And I also just love any friendship story in a romance book. Like, I can eat that up just as much as the romance itself. So, obviously, this book is perfect, and I think you should go read it. Those were my only two 5 stars of the month, but having two in a month back to back is insane. And I really should have expected that those two would be 5 stars, but I wasn't sure about Funny Story. I knew I would like it. I didn't know if it'd be a 5 star or not, and it definitely was. So that is my new favorite Emily Henry book, and I need to read the other so I can get a very specific ranking down and locked in. So the next handful of books were all on my Kindle. So obviously my best friend chose what I read last month. And so during that time, a lot of my Libby holds started coming in and I had to like put them off. And so they all just kind of like all stacked up on top of each other and then they all came in at once. So that was my bad. That was really my fault. And most of these were for work. Because if you don't know, I work at a bookstore and I have a weekly video series on our Instagram where I recommend books to our audience. So I need to I'm like trying to read all of the books that we own. So the next book I read was A Song to Drown Rivers by Anne Liang. She is a very popular author. I actually followed her on Instagram just because I love her content and she just seems like a really amazing person. She primarily writes YA romances, but this is her, I think, only YA fantasy, or her only fantasy in general. And it's just one that we had, and that one that just came in on Libby for me, so it's the first one that I picked up. I did rate this one a solid 3 stars. This was my lowest rating of the month, only because, I don't know, I just wasn't super into it, but this book follows our main character I can no longer remember the name of because I don't have the book in front of me, but it follows our main character and she lives in Leeds. I can't remember that either. She lives in a kingdom that is currently at war with a rival kingdom. And the thing about our main character is that she is known to be the most beautiful woman in all the land. Okay, she is drop dead gorgeous. Everybody who sees her is like, "Will you marry me?" And she's like, "No, that doesn't sound like a fun time." So she's just known for being beautiful. And this is actually based off a real, I think, Chinese folktale about the 7 beautiful women, which I thought was really cool. And I think she shares the name of one of them, which I love. I love creating fantasy off of a real folktale story, but you're taking it into your own hands and creating a different story out of it. I love those. I eat that up every time. But she is just going about her life one day and she is approached by the king's advisor. That's the word. She's approached by the king's advisor and he's like, "Hey, I have a plan to defeat this rival kingdom, but I need you and your best friend." So the plan is to send her to this rival kingdom as a concubine, which I thought was really interesting to deal with in a YA book. But I think, honestly, Anne handled it really well, and I wasn't concerned at all. But Mr. Advisor here is like, "You're gonna go, you're gonna be the rival king's concubine, and you're gonna tear this kingdom down from the inside. Your best friend, I'm gonna train her in battle so she can protect you as your lady in waiting." Obviously, no one's gonna know this girl can fight, but this girl can fight. And that's the plan. He's like, "My job is writing on this, so please succeed." And she's like, "This seems kind of like a bad idea, but I could be a hero and I could be worth something more than my beauty, so I'm gonna do it." And she does it. She goes and she is this king's concubine. She's actually really smart. I really liked how she handled all the situations. The rival king's advisor is suspicious. Okay, he's like, "I don't trust this girl. I'm gonna put her room farthest away from the king's." And she manages to still sneak into this king's heart and gets him to fall in love with her. And it's really impressive. Honestly, I found the entire situation impressive. I think she just handled everything really well. I liked her relationship with her best friend. But I think one thing I really didn't like was the romance in this book. It felt really forced. Really forced. I don't think there was any chemistry between them. I think at first I was like, "Oh, I know who the love interest is." But then as I kept going, she's like, "Yeah, I'm in love with him, but I can't have him." And I'm like, "Okay." And then she's in the rival kingdom and she'll think about him. And I'm just like, it felt really forced. And I think that held me back a lot from enjoying it. I also just wasn't super into it. I wasn't invested as much. I think I was just reading it as one just reads a fairy tale, it's not something you're really emotionally invested in. It's just kind of fun to read. And I appreciated all the messages and themes of surrounding war and who really is the bad guy in a war and her role as a woman in a traditional society. And I always appreciate themes like that. But again, I just wasn't super into it, so I originally rated it at 3.5 stars, but I think it is a solid 3-star read. It's really good. I would recommend it. It just wasn't my favorite, and I think it definitely could have been better. But I still want to read the author's other books. I've heard like nothing good, or I've heard nothing good. Wrong. I've heard nothing but good things about her YA romances, and we actually saw one at the store, so I have an excuse to read it. So I do want to read her other books, and I imagine that the romance won't be as forced as this one felt. I think this romance just kind of got put on the back burner to the fantasy plot. Like, I don't think it got as much focus as this world did, which I think held it back a lot. So that was A Song to Drown Rivers by Anne Liang. And next I read We Solve Murders by Richard Osman. This one was a solid 4-star read. I was really excited about this one because it seemed just like a really quirky mystery. And I love a good mystery thriller, but the idea of a quirky mystery just seems so appealing to me. Like, yes, give me the most ridiculous mystery plotline ever. I'd probably eat it up. This one was like, okay, it was pretty ridiculous at some points, but it did have like more serious moments as well. This book follows a bunch of different perspectives. We have our main character, Amy, who is a bodyguard, and she is sent to this private island to guard this author who has had like threats against her from like the Irish mob. Italian. A mob boss. I don't remember. It was like a very specific one that she had like written a book about. So she had been targeted by this mob boss, and so Amy is sent to protect her. However, within Amy's organization, there are some things going down because 4 of the influencers that this organization looks after all got killed. And the circumstances were all the same. So like it was very obvious that the same person had killed all of these people. And it becomes very clear that whoever killed all those people are getting ready to frame Amy for the murder. So Amy's boss is like trying to pull her off the island while she starts getting targeted by the killers organization, and it's a mess. Her father-in-law gets involved. He's an ex-police officer turned private investigator in his small British town, and he gets dragged into it, and it's really funny because he's like, hey, can I go back home now? And everybody's like, no, we have things to do. And Amy, her father-in-law, and this really rich, cool old woman author are determined to solve the murders so they can basically save Amy's life. And also, obviously, prevent other influencers from being murdered, but also mainly protecting Amy. So it's such a mess. I love the characters that all get dragged into this because you see the perspectives from the people trying to kill Amy and the perspectives from like the father-in-law's friends, and it's so many people are involved in this plotline and I love it so much. I believe my ankle is falling asleep. I believe it's going to be a series. I think Amy and her gang are gonna continue to solve more murders. Ooh, my ankle hurts. I think they're gonna continue to solve more murders together, and I'm excited about it because I just think they are a fun little quirky team. Also, her husband seems pretty chill. They have a very interesting dynamic. I kind of liked it because, I don't know, it's not like a typical marriage, but like they make it work. And they're both always traveling and they don't always talk to each other all the time. In fact, she probably talks to her father-in-law more than she talks to her husband, but they're still like, no, I love this person and I'm spending the rest of my life with them, and it's just a very interesting dynamic and I appreciated it a lot. Next I read The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. This was my first Catherine Center book. I know she has a couple of different big ones. She just had one new release, The Love Haters, and I think one that everybody knows is The Bodyguard. But this book is a adult romance. Although, if you want a good adult romance but you don't want smut, I don't think there was like any in this one. I also read this right after I got my wisdom teeth out. So my recollection of it may not be the best. I was a little drugged. But this book follows our main character. I want to say her name is Daphne, but I don't think that's correct. I don't know her name. But it follows our main character who is living at home with her dad. She had kind of given up her dreams to become a screenwriter to take care of her dad because when she had just graduated high school, he had a really bad accident and now needs a lot of care. So she is allowing her sister to go off and get her degree while she got her college degree online, and she is teaching English at like local community college, but she also has a connection to the like LA writing industry because her ex-boyfriend from high school is like an agent, a writer's agent out there, and he'll come to her with some odd jobs to help her stay writing and to keep her connected into the industry. So she still manages to get some writing in, but her main life is surrounding her father. Well, one day her ex boyfriend calls and he's like, I have a job for you. You know, this one really amazing screenwriter that you're practically in love with, that you have like posters on your wall of? Yeah, he wrote a really bad rom com, and I need you to rewrite it without any credit, but you'll be paid. And she's like, oh, obviously, yes. However, she has to move out to LA to do it. So this already causes an interesting dynamic because she has to allow her sister to take on the role of caring for their father after so many years of being the sole caretaker and fly out to LA to deal with this man who doesn't believe in love, writing a rom com. Obviously, that doesn't go well, but she is a very interesting main character, and I honestly really liked her and the way she stood up for herself. And, she like overheard a couple conversations, and she's like, if that's what you think, then I'm not doing this. She's like, we're gonna do this for real, or we're not gonna do it at all, and you can like suffer the consequences to your career. And she was a queen for that. It was just really interesting. I enjoyed her falling in love with, I thought if I said it fast enough, I would remember his name, but I don't. I enjoyed their love story, and I love like the dynamics where it's like, I'm gonna teach you what a rom com is, and like we're gonna do all these like cute romancy stuff, but don't worry, we're not together. Like, Funny Story had that. That was the main plot line in the love montage by, where is it? Somebody? Oh, the Falling in Love montage by Kiara Smythe. I just like love that dynamic of I'm gonna teach you all about these like romance things, and we're not gonna fall in love along the way because, you know, that's never gonna happen. So I enjoyed that aspect, although this book definitely wasn't entirely what I thought it would be. I still enjoyed it. I rated it 3.5 stars. I thought it was good. It wasn't show stopping. It didn't make me kick my feet screaming. I just enjoyed the book in itself. I really liked the ending. I think the main male character had a lot of good development that wasn't too far fetched. I think sometimes it can be hard when you're kind of doing a little bit of a 180 with a character to really feel that 180, but I feel like his happened pretty smoothly. And again, I liked our main female character. I think she just handled the situation as well as she could. I know I would struggle a lot with that situation, so I think she did great. So yeah, that was the rom-commers, and then I read Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. That was also a 3.5-star read. So this is about the women that Ted Bundy had murdered. Okay, so it follows two different women, and both of their best friends were one of Ted Bundy's victims. And one of the main characters, she is in the sorority that got attacked by him. I did not know about this, but apparently at Florida State University, he had attacked a sorority and killed about 4 young women. And this follows the president of that sorority, and her best friend was the one that had been killed. And she's basically having to fight to be validated in her own testimony because everybody around her thinks that this like other guy did it. And she's like, okay, this other guy sucks, yes, but he's not the one who did it. It was this guy. And this other woman comes from the East Coast because her best friend had been murdered out there and just heard about these ones over here. And so she flew out here to talk to her main character. She's like, I know who killed your best friend. Let's take him down. But the thing about Ted Bundy is apparently he was like super charismatic, and like it was hard to get juries to go against him because they're all like, oh, he's just a super great guy. I don't know how true that is. I just know that from this book. I do want to watch or listen to like a podcast or a documentary about it now, because I don't, obviously it's a name I know of, but I don't really know much about the situation. So I want to learn about that now. But the reason I actually read this book was because my roommate loves listening to Morbid, this one true crime podcast, and she came home one day talking about what's his name? Robert Durst, who is a whole situation. And we ended up watching a documentary about him, a documentary that he's literally in. Like, he tells these people to interview him after he got away, like, with, like, oh my gosh, it's a crazy situation. Go look up The Jinx on HBO Max and go watch that. It's crazy. But we had been watching that, and the idea of, like, these women, like, losing their lives in these situations to horrible men just absolutely breaks my heart, especially because they always are pretty young. And I just remember like watching this documentary and my heart just aching for his wife, that who had gone missing several years back. And it just breaks my heart knowing that this young woman just doesn't have a future anymore. And like his wife was going to medical school, she was about to graduate, like she had her whole life in front of her. And it just broke my heart to know that like that wasn't, she didn't get to live that life. So I wanted to read Bright Young Women because it felt like it would, I don't even know the word, just kind of I guess continue that pain. But like I wanted a book that felt that way and that shared those experiences, and I don't think that book gave me what I needed, which probably shouldn't take away from the reading, but I think it probably did. But overall, I think it was still a great book. I think we definitely could have gone more into the victims instead of trying to solve a murder, because it felt like it started to turn more into a let's take down this guy rather than like the women, which isn't bad. I just wasn't expecting it, so I think that just deterred me a little bit. I don't know. It was still a really good book. I enjoyed the women empowerment that happened here. This book was kind of a struggle sometimes because of like what the women had to like face and go through, and like how much they had to fight just to get their voices out there, and it was really good. I think if you want a good women empowerment book, I think that one would be a good one to read, but I just don't think it was what I was needing at the time, which sucks. Next, I read Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. Cicerelli? I think that's how you say the name, but I'm not 100% sure. Now, this is a fantasy book that has been blowing up. I don't think I've seen any hate about this book at all, and now I understand why. I rated this 4 stars. I was kind of expecting a 5-star read out of it, but I think the romance was a little bit rushed for me. I would like more attention than I got, but oh well. So, this book follows our main character, Rune. I do remember her name because I just finished this book last week. And she is a witch. She's actually known as the Crimson Moth, but no one knows that she's a Crimson Moth because she goes around freeing witches from the possibility of being captured and killed by their government. And Gideon, I have a cousin named Gideon, so that was kind of weird to read about, but Gideon is a witch hunter, naturally, and he is trying to find the Crimson Moth. And he kind of suspects Rune of being her, so he's like, I'm gonna fake court you. And Rune's like, I need insider information so I can continue to free more witches, so I'm gonna pretend to court you. And they're both pretending to be in love with each other. And naturally, they fall in love. So it is such an interesting dynamic. I think it was just like really insane, and sometimes this book gave me a lot of anxiety just because I'm like, it's anxiety inducing, but it was really good. Again, I think the romance could have had a little bit more build up to it, but I did enjoy Gideon and Rune together. I think they had the chemistry. I just think that in situations like these, I need the tension. I love the dynamic of her being a witch and him being a witch hunter. I liked the magic system. It was really unique. And her using her own period blood for spell magic. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard of. I will say, this book is supposed to be a YA fantasy or romantasy, however you want to categorize it. I think it honestly could be either. For a YA book, this does have a fairly explicit romance scene. Just because you don't see the couple, like, go, like, detailed actions, doesn't mean it can't be considered smut. Because, like, it was still pretty detailed for a YA book. Like, if I had read that in high school, like, jaw on the floor, I'd be like, I'm not allowed to be reading this right now. Like, I know that for a fact. So, I think we need some reclassification here. I wouldn't call it adult, though. Maybe, like, new adult, but it is kind of, it does have a very explicit scene for it being a YA book. That took me quite by surprise, especially because I was in the car with my father, and that was not fun. So, thank you for that surprise. I was not expecting that. But I think it still was a great book. I obviously need to read the second one now. I am aware that I did technically just start another series when I'm trying to finish all the other ones, but don't look at me like that, okay? I can feel you looking at me and I need you to just stop the judgment, okay? I'll catch up. No, I won't. That was the last book that I read on my Kindle for the month. And then I read, literally just finished an hour ago, The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, which is funny because I just watched the documentary about Robert Durst. Irony. This book was a solid 4.5-star read. I really enjoyed this book. For a little bit, I genuinely thought it would be a 5 stars, but the main couple kissed and I didn't feel like I was gonna start screaming, so therefore it wasn't a 5-star read. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. This is the coziest fantasy that you will ever read, okay? I literally can't. So, our main character, Kyla or Keela? Throughout the book, I switched the pronunciation in my head and I still don't know how to pronounce it. But we're gonna go with Kyla because I feel like that's the correct version. I'm not sure though. So Kyla's a librarian and she works at the Great Library in this great empire. However, there's a revolutionary happening and her library actually starts to get burned with her in it. Nobody thought to like warn her. Okay, so she grabs as many of the spell books as she can because like her section was mainly things like magical things. So she grabs as many books as she can, as well as her best friend, and they flee to the island. Oops. They flee to the island that she's originally from, which sounds normal, except this island is, it's like a small town. It's giving like a small town romance, like the quirky like baker and like the grumpy old man, and like it has those vibes. And her best friend is in fact a sentient spider plant. Okay, this is a spider plant that can talk, can see without a mouth or eyes, and walks around on his roots like out of his pot, and it's actually the best thing ever. Yeah, Kaz I think was my favorite character, which naturally. So she comes home and she moves into her parents' old cottage. They had originally moved away from the island to like go to the city to allow Kyla to have like more experiences and opportunities in life, and they ended up passing away in the city. So this is already a hard experience for her, but she now has to learn like how to take care of herself. Like she doesn't know really how to start a fire and how to do all these things, and now she has to make a living on this island that probably doesn't even have a library, and yeah, it's a complicated situation. So using these spell books, she decides that she's going to start a jam shop that is a front for selling remedies, aka spells. And the thing about this is highly dangerous because magic is not illegal completely, but like if you're not authorized to use magic, it is illegal for you to use it. Like you have to be an authorized trained sorcerer in order to use magic. So she is risking a lot, and Kaz has a lot of anxiety about the situation. But she does it. She opens a jam shop and she sells remedies, and her neighbor-ish, I think there's like a distance between them, but like it's like on the outer skirts of town, like out of town, or I don't know. He is, your typical like male farmer. Like he's a big dude. He loves his mer horses. Yes, mer horses. They're hippocampi. like from Percy Jackson. That's how I picture them, at least. He loves his mer horses, and he's just a really friendly guy. Like, he tries to help Kyla out a lot, and she's like, dude, back off. Like, I don't like people. And naturally, everybody in the town, including Laren, the neighbor, breaks her walls down, and she's like, oh, maybe I do like people. And it's the cutest thing ever. This book has actually quite a few different conflicts, which I found to be interesting. I also love the main character. I've never related to a main character more in my life, and this girl is literally blue. I don't know why she's blue, but she's blue. And she is just super antisocial. She loves her books, wants to protect them at all costs, and would rather be with her books than anybody else. And she has her best friend, and she doesn't feel like she needs anybody else. Granted, her best friend is a spider plant, but I can relate to that as well, because I have, like, very few friends outside of my roommate. And the way she interacts with Laren is, like, the most awkward thing you'll ever see. Like, she's standing there, and she's like, thanks for helping. And he's like, anything for you. And she's like, oh, he's just being, like, really nice, and, like, he's just a friendly guy. And Kaz is like, he's trying to flirt with you, but also Laren's super awkward, and, like, he's just like, yeah, this is great. And it's, like, the most precious thing ever. Like, I've never seen such a realistic romantic dynamic in a fantasy book, or honestly ever. Because, like, okay, I'm all for banter, okay? I'm all for the flirty banter, but having banter constantly is not realistic. No, being awkward with somebody you think is hot, that's realistic. So, that was something I really loved about this book. Honestly, I loved everything. She became besties with the local baker, and they kind of joined business together so the baker could have jam and she could have the supplies to make jam and, like, toast and stuff. And she learned magic, and she did some cool stuff. And she's such a cool person, and I love the little lessons of just, like, being kind to your neighbors and just, like, being a good person that this book had. So yeah, I think you should go read this. It's just, like, such a warm hug of a book. I think if you're just looking for something with just pure joy, like, literally in the acknowledgments, the author was like, I wanted to write a book that felt like drinking hot chocolate. I want to write a book that reads like drinking hot chocolate, or eating really good raspberry jam, or a fresh baked pastry with hot chocolate and maybe some raspberry jam on the side. And that's what this book feels like. She succeeded. I just had such a fun time reading that. And I love cozy fantasy. Oh my gosh. I think the more I read cozy fantasy, the more I just fall in love with it. That's were the 8 books that I read in May. I did think I would do a little bit better, only because I had, like, 2 weeks off of work because I was getting my wisdom teeth out and I was traveling. So I thought I would have a lot more read by the end of the month, but I think I ended up sleeping for, like, the entirety of the 2 weeks I was out. So, oops. So yeah, other things I did in May, though, I flew out to Oregon with my dad for my grandma's celebration of life. Literally, like, less than a week after I got my wisdom teeth out, because that's literally how it always happens. And when we were in Oregon, I found a really cute romantic-y bookstore, and I got 2 new books. You Can't Spell Treason Without Tea, and what's it called? The Tales of the Hollow. Got that. I should have looked for the Rose Bargain, because I've heard nothing but good things about that, and I feel like that store would have had it. But, oh well, too late now. And I also got these, like, really cute earrings as well, and the shop is just so cute. I'm gonna make a reel and post it on Instagram, just, like, showing off the bookstore, just because it was the most precious bookstore I've ever been to. Unfortunately, we were a little rushed because we got there, like, 20 minutes before closing, and we wanted to make sure, like, we weren't, like, sticking around. Also, I think they were having a book club, and so, like, they were gathering things for that, and I was rushing, so I grabbed, like, the 2 books that seemed most interesting to me at first, and I went along with my day. We also got food from this really great gluten-free burger joint, and I got to have an Oreo shake. Let me tell you, being gluten-free, you don't get a lot of Oreo shakes. I had a great time with my dad. We ended up actually driving back from Oregon because plans never go according to plan when I'm with my father. Like, if it's just us 2 traveling together, things don't go as planned, and I find it so funny. So that was just really fun. We listened to some true crime podcasts and I got to read quite a bit and really fun things. And then at the beginning of May, I did have my finals. I finished off my last spring semester of college, which is crazy. I have one more semester left, and finals went great. I ended with all A's, and I am perfectly right on track to graduate in the fall, which again, so crazy to me. Some of the things that I've been watching and listening to, like I said, my roommate and I watched The Jinx, which is about Robert Durst. We also watched Solo Leveling, which is like the anime right now. I believe it surpassed like One Piece for the top anime, which is absolute craziness. But this was my roommate's first time watching an anime, and she's gonna hate me for telling this to you guys. She loved it. I'm turning her into more of a nerd than she was when I first met her, and it makes me happy. I've been listening to a lot of Not Another D&D podcast, which is in fact a podcast about people playing D&D. If you don't know, I'm like as nerdy as you can get. And then my brother and his wife actually just released a new podcast called Anime Core, where they just nerd out about anime, and it's really interesting, and it gets me to watch more anime because it did get me to start watching Apothecary Diaries, and that is very cozy. Like that, it feels like a cozy fantasy book. I'm in my cozy fantasy era. I feel like doing nothing all day but watering my plants and baking bread. That's what era I'm in right now. So maybe in June I can achieve my dreams. And I think that's basically my entire May. I'm back at work. I do have more travel plans for the summer, but we'll get to those when we get to that month. And yeah, I'm excited for my reading month in June. I've been feeling really overwhelmed by all the books that I want to read. I just got Fable for the End of the World by Ava Reed at the library, and When in Rome by Sarah Adams just came in on Libby. So those are probably going to be my first two reads of June. And then I do want to read The Sunshine Court and The Pairing. I feel like I want to prioritize reading queer books this month because it is Pride Month, but I'm also a very strong believer in you shouldn't only read queer books during June. Like, you should be reading them all year. I actually feel like I never read as many queer books in June as like I think I should. But that's also just because I read them throughout the year. So if I don't read as many in June, that's normal. But I am going to try to fit as many as I can in, including The Pairing. I feel like June is the perfect month to read The Pairing by Casey McQuiston, so we're finally going to do that. Maybe. Probably not. That's my May and kind of a couple of my plans for June. I am so excited for the videos I have planned for June. I'm hoping to do a fun reading vlog and a sit-down video where I recommend you some of my all-time favorite queer books because I feel like June's obviously the perfect month to recommend queer books. And it's also the month where people are like looking for them too. So maybe that video can get some traction. This was a long wrap up, but that's fine. I yap a lot when it comes to books. Anyways, I'm gonna let you guys go now. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've made it to the end of the video, please let me know what your favorite read of May is, or least favorite, or maybe some of the plans that you have for June. I would love to just know anything and everything about you and your reading and yap in the comments to me. That would make me happy. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe below, and I will see you guys all next week. Bye!